leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, it is still a long walk to freedom, despite being discharged by a court. The National Security Council has thrown its weight behind the position of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, that the appeal court's judgment on Kanu is not an acquittal. The council, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa, Abuja, insisted that Kanu has only been discharged by the Court of Appeal and that government will explore necessary action available to press on with the matter. Jide?
Yes, my only concern is that if the people in the Ministry of Justice, in the Office of the Attorney General, had been more proactive, they probably would have prepared for this kind of judgment. So that, because we've seen even in this country, somebody gets released, is arrested immediately, and a fresh charge filed. You get the point that I'm making? Not that you will now say you will decide what you will do later. I mean, these things are not tidy. They deserve to know that these things are not tidy. Kanu has said a lot of things, trying to pit Nigerians against one another and all that. Maybe they were not expecting to lose this case. Maybe. Because you see the energy invested in this case. At a point, they came up with about 15 count charges and that.
It's not the number of charges that you have.
The trial judge slashed the 15 count charge by half. Now, all of those charges have even been thrown away by the appeal court, by this judgment. So, there should, because we've seen previous governments do it, when they are dealing with a high-profile accused person like this, they will arrest, immediately the judgment is handed down, and that person is about to walk into freedom. They will pick him up and even rearrange him on a separate charge. But that's not what we have seen. You kept him there, and you are saying that you will decide his matter later. These are the things that give room for some of the things that we are reading on social media. A man has won at the level of appeal court, and based on Section 287 of the Constitution, he should be free. He should be free. The government reserves the right to keep in detention a person that it deems dangerous, a person that they believe to give him freedom, especially when he has not renounced his
leadership.
No, renounced his agitation for the dismemberment of our country. But you don't do it in the way that they are doing. That's the point that I'm making. No one is saying that you shouldn't file fresh charges. But you should be ready, you should expect that he could win this case. This is not the first time that he's defeating you in court. He defeated you in Umuahia. Now, if you are proactive, you will have said, okay, in case he wins at this court,
what do we do?
What do we do? Your fresh charge will be ready. As soon as he's released, you pick him up and then properly rearrange him on a fresh charge. That's what we've seen some government do in the past, and they will feel justified that, yes, we are arraigning, not that we have simply denied him of his freedom, we are arraigning him on a separate charge. But you have not brought any charge now. You are saying that you are going to keep him, you will decide his fate soon. No, that is not right. You should have somebody that has been in your hands for not less than a year. You should have prepared a fresh. This one, what they are saying now, that there are other cases related to what he did before he then jumped bail. Those ones, you should have come up with a proper charge. That's how it's done. Not to we'll keep him now for some time, and you are thinking of what to charge him with. People will say, no, this is not right. People will say you have simply disobeyed the order of the appeal court.
Dr. What do you make of this situation?
Well, for me, I think what the president should do is to honor his promise. If you recollect, a former Minister of Aviation in the First Republic, Mbazuluki Amici, met with him. And he said the whole thing is in the hands of the court. That once the court makes a pronouncement, he's fine with it. He doesn't want a political situation. Doesn't want to interfere. Now it's done. The night of that judgment, the Attorney General said he won't go because the following day, the National Security Council meets and headed by the president, and then says it can't be released. If the president made a promise on this to Nigerians after that meeting, that's it. Whatever the court says, this man, on this man, I'm going to abide. You shouldn't come back to tell us that you can't keep your promise. And like BKO said, it's a huge source of concern for Nigerians. If this man has no other case to attend to now, let him go. Let him go. And then you can, when you find what you think you want to charge him for, then go and bring him back.
Julie, we might not be privy to what government, in terms of security report and some other things, and knowing that, look, if they set free this man, that it might be counterproductive to the peace in the Southeast.
Counterproductive to the peace? It all depends. There are many people who believe that if they free him, that agitation, the civil disobedience part of it, that is the Monday sit at home will stop, because there will be no basis for it. They set up the Monday sit at home because of him.
And it became a
Later
monster.
on, they now said, okay, only on days when it's brought to
attending the court.
that is when they will do. But people are not listening, So if he's freed, those who are saying that his incarceration is the reason they are doing sit at home, what would be their argument anymore? If he's freed, Emma Powerful and his other aides who are saying it's only on the days when it's brought to court that they should do sit at home, what will they now say next? So I want to believe that if he's freed, there will be no need for that sit at home. It's that sit at home that is especially damaging, because it's also on those days that they attack people, try to go and attend to their businesses and all that. They usually commit all kinds of crimes during that sit at home. They go sometimes to attack even the armed forces, at their checkpoints on those days. There's no day that they do sit at home that you won't later read that they kill some people and all that. So I believe that his release can lead to peace in that place. But I am for a political solution, and I've argued for that many times here. A political solution anchored on his renunciation of his goal. No, but
Can he
do
that?
No, we cannot say he can't do that. If people like the old man said, in the past, I spoke to him,
yes, that's
and he listened.
Amici.
For example, IPOB came out to say, let's have election in Anambra. How many people expected that they would say that? Because they have been saying no election unless there's a referendum. But before the election, IPOB said, our people, go and do your election. It was because they spoke to them. And that's the point that the old man was making, that, look, release him to me. He listens to me. If I talk to him, he will listen. So we can't say that even if he's released, that he cannot renounce the Biafra thing, or that it will not lead to peace. I've seen more dangerous people in the world resort to violence, and somehow they were able to bring them to the round table for discussion. I mentioned Buthelezi. When the Inkatha Freedom Party and ANC, they were slaughtering each other. It was such a massive shame. You see them broad daylight, they will be cutting someone's neck in South Africa. But they had to come to a round table. Buthelezi was even made vice president. There was power sharing, and the killing stopped instantly. Instantly, the killing stopped. So there's no level of violence that cannot be solved, even through political means. And if people say, "Oh, it has to be court," court does not solve all problems.
My own question, finally, Dotun, on this is that the federal government, they've gone ahead to name the organization he heads as a terrorist organization. That's IPOB. And the courts has acquitted him. Moving forward now.
I don't think there is a big deal to any name or any position taken by a court once to resolve the issue politically. You see, all of the time, we should know that the laws of our lands, they are meant for us. And as such, we can find a way in between the laws to see how we can resolve our conflicts. Like the case you mentioned in South Africa. It wasn't by election. If you are to go by the law, everybody getting into a political office should be elected. But sometimes you sit together and say, okay, see, let's concede this. It's just like what you call consensus in some parties, which is allowable. Can we sit down and talk to ourselves? Especially when now the court has said this man has committed no sin. Let him go. So now, if you are not careful, the federal government is going to become the villain.
Yes.
Initially,
people will say they are selective about the judgment.
About the judgment they obey.
And we
that's
saw
dangerous.
We saw an attorney general that the other day, just a small court in Umuahia came up with a judgment, and he wanted it implemented instantly. We are as if it's the final court. Who does that? A small court in Umuahia.
And which has even no business with what was happening. There was another one.
In the end, they lost that case.
I think in Jalingo or Kaduna, where you took a case from one region to go and advocate on. We shouldn't be doing that.
Well, if it's an appeal court, yes. A small court.
A small court.
And you wanted immediate. No, now. When those people still have the right to appeal, you can't say you want to implement the judgment instantly just because you are Attorney General. So the government reserves the right, as I've said, to file fresh charges. But I would have expected that if that was the case, at least they would have had that separate charge. So as soon as, so that they don't say that they are disobeying the court. ASU didn't want to disobey the court. They had to end their strike. You know?
Okay. And I agree with you. In this case, what the president should have done is, okay, DSS, bring this man. And hand him over to the old man who promised, I can talk with him. Hand him over. I support you fully. Fully.
You know, there were some people, in fact, one blocked me on Facebook when I was saying that we needed to make peace in the Niger Delta. The person who blocked me is not a historian. He probably does not know anything about history of wars. I remember that even during the Nigerian Civil War, that terrain was very challenging for Nigerian troops. Yeah. I knew that force would not work. And I said, let's make peace. The guy got on social media, he was abusing me. All kinds of people on social media. I left him. Nigeria sent 4,500 troops to the Niger Delta. They couldn't achieve anything. In the end, the VP, this current VP, and the former Minister of State for Petroleum Affairs, they were the ones who now went and engaged those guys. And they stopped sabotaging Nigeria's oil export. And our output went up. I'm talking about testimony by the VP at an event I attended. So it's not every time that force. You send 4,500 troops. Some of them were sinking in the creeks. Where are you going to? And you cannot. It's not a place where you can call the Air Force. Oh, you have drop bombs.
Drop bomb.
Do you want to drop bombs on your own oil fields?
You are just going to.
I mean,